What's up, everybody? This is Kyle Miller from the Hear Me Out Sports Podcast. I'm going to be talking to you today about my Week 1 wide receiver stardom sit-em, how I did, what I got right, what I got wrong, as well as talking to you about my Week 2 wide receiver stardom sit-em. So let's get after it. Okay, like I said, we're going to review my Week 1. How did I do? So as you can see, I got about 64% of my predictions right. That's stardom and sit-em combined. Out of the people I told you to start, 19 of the 35 wide receivers that I said to start ended up with more than 12 points, or at least 12 points, I should say. So good for about 54%, which is lower than I want to be. But if you count my close calls, I had 10 out of 35 that didn't hit that could have. So I could have been a lot higher. And when I say close calls, I mean within 2 points of that 12. So basically 10 points or higher. If I had just hit a little bit more, had one more catch for a lot of these guys, we would have been a lot higher. My sit-em, I was 70% accurate, so I didn't break you if I told you to sit people and you sat them, but I probably could have told you to start. I probably could have told you to sit a couple more people that I told you to start. So I'll do better, like I said, but come at me. Tell me why I'm an idiot if you think I'm an idiot. And if I'm losing you money, let me know, and I'll shoot you some cash to cover your league fees if I'm causing you to lose. So get after me. Let me know what you think I'm getting right, what you think I'm getting wrong. But I'm an honesty broker. I'll be fantasy football's honesty broker here in America. So come after me. I'll tell you what I'm getting right every single week, as well as what I'm getting wrong every single week. Hopping into my wide receivers of week 2. So start them, sit them again. That's what we're talking about. And the threshold that we're talking about to start a wide receiver is that 12 points. So we're thinking 12 points or higher from historical averages. And you got yourself at least a wide receiver 3 on the week, meaning a top 36 wide receiver in fantasy performance on the week if they can score 12 points. So that's what we're talking about here. Starting off with the Thursday night game, LA Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs. On the Chargers side, I'm starting Mike Williams and Josh Palmer. So Keenan Allen, as of today, they don't think he's going to play, and it's most likely he's not going to play. And if he does, he's going to be limited a little bit by that injury. So I'm starting Mike Williams. I'm starting Josh Palmer in a game that I expect to be high scoring. Austin Ekeler wasn't really involved too much. That's the running backs we're talking about here. But Austin Ekeler wasn't involved too much last week, especially in passing game. So I expect him to get a lot of targets this week, especially with Keenan Allen most likely sitting. So my two guys are Mike Williams and Josh Palmer. Even if Keenan Allen plays, I'm going to tell you to sit him, even though you're probably going to start him. But even if he plays, I think the injury is going to hold him back and limit what he can do. So sit him, as well as Jalen Guyton and DeAndre Carter for the Chargers. I'm starting Mike Williams and Josh Palmer this week. On the Chiefs side, I'm only starting Juju. I think he proved last week, like I was saying all preseason long, that I think Juju's going to be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. He proved that last week. He got a huge target share there, especially if you're only looking at wide receivers. He had a huge target share for Kansas City. So I like Juju to start this week, but I'm sitting MVS. I'm sitting Mecole Hardman. I'm sitting the rookie Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore can have a few good games this year. I just don't think it's going to start this early. I think he needs to be in game action more to kind of catch up with NFL speed before we see him start to produce on the fantasy end. So Juju is my only start this week. I think that Mahomes is going to keep throwing to his running backs and, of course, to Travis Kelce. So Juju is my only guy from Kansas City that I'm recommending you to start this week. Moving on, Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens. So if I'm being completely honest, the Ravens are the team I missed the most last week, and it's because I told you to sit every receiver, and they had, I think, definitely at least 2 with Bateman and Duvernay go over 12 and have good games. But both of those were big-time touchdown reliant. So Duvernay only had 4 catches for 54 yards, but he scored 2 touchdowns. And Bateman only had 2 catches for 59 yards, but he scored a touchdown. So they both pushed over 12. I'm not expecting the same thing. The Dolphins have a really good defense this year, especially in the secondary. It's probably the strongest part of their defense. So for a second week in a row, I am telling you, sit all the Ravens receivers. The lowest rushing game of Lamar Jackson's career was, as a team, I should say, but for Lamar Jackson's career, was last week against the Jets. I don't think it happens again. I think they go back to the running attack against Miami, especially against an elite secondary in the Dolphins have. So sit all the Ravens receivers. Don't start any of them. I want to see Lamar and his wideouts specifically produce a few weeks in a row before I trust any of that. On the Dolphins side, I'm starting Tyreek. I'm starting Jalen Waddle. Ravens had a big injury in their cornerback room last week, so I think it'll be more open for Hill and Waddle to be running around loose. I was tempted to start Cedric Wilson. I just don't know if Tua can support more than 2 wide receivers scoring over 12 points a game. I like Tua this year, but with their backs that they have that are good receiving backs, I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to be able to support 3. So I almost put Cedric Wilson up, but right now I'm just recommending Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to start on the Miami side. Moving on to the Browns and the Jets. Jets disappointed me a lot last week. I thought their offense would look better, especially with Flacco, but honestly, their whole offense looked out of sync, played pretty terrible. I'm hoping that changes this week, starting with Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore, like I said, is going to have a good season. I think that he plays pretty well typically without Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson being gone, I thought would help buoy Elijah Moore's fantasy floor, but he didn't show that last week. So I'm taking another risk. If he burns me again, then I'm going to throw him on the bench until he starts producing. But Elijah Moore, I got to start him. I'm sitting the other 3 guys, Corey Davis, the rookie Garrett Wilson, as well as Braxton Berrios. But give me Elijah Moore to start on the Jets side. The Browns, they just run the ball all game. They showed that against Carolina. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, when they did throw, is Brissett's favorite target. So give me DPJ. I think that if he won't give you the 12-plus points on the yardage side, he'll give it to you on the reception side. He'll have 5-plus catches and potentially a touchdown. So give me Donovan Peoples-Jones as the only stardom. I think that the Jets secondary is really good. I think Sauce Gardner is the real deal. That kid can play. I think they only gave up 8 yards. Their 2 starting cornerbacks last week only gave up 8 yards against the Ravens. And so give me just Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think his crossing routes over the middle will help free him up for some looks, but I don't think Amari Cooper's big game starts here against the Jets. I think him and Shorts are definitely sit-ems, and give me Donovan Peoples-Jones as a potential guy to help you out. Commanders and Lions, both teams that impressed, I thought, last week, even though the Lions ended up losing. They put up 35 points against a good Philadelphia Eagles team. Amon-Ra St. Brown, for all the doubters out there, he continues to prove you wrong. You have to start him. He's legit. He's going to have over 12. He's got a huge target share. And, again, against a good Philadelphia Eagles defense, they put up a bunch of points, and ARSB was a huge part of that. So give me Amon-Ra to start on the Lions side, but that's the only receiver. I'm not starting Reynolds. I'm not starting Shark, because I think that Goff is going to throw to Hawkinson again, and I think he's going to use both of his running backs, as well as they're going to actually run the ball. Lions have good running backs, so just one receiver on that side. I say RSB, who's proven to be a stud over his last 8 games. Washington Commanders, I'm actually starting 3 wideouts this week for the Commanders. Give me Curtis Samuel, give me Terry McLaurin, give me Jahan Dotson. So Dotson and Samuel both produced over 12 points last week, but I think McLaurin is their best receiver, and he's gonna have a much easier matchup going against the Lions secondary this week. So I like all 3 of those guys to start. Carson Wentz showed he had a pretty solid handling of the offense last week. So I like all 3 of those guys to start. They don't have a super strong running game, especially with Brian Robinson still out, recovering from gunshot wounds. So I like Antonio Gibson, out of the backfield. But the only guy I'm really concerned about taking targets is Antonio Gibson. So give me Samuel, give me McLaurin, give me Dotson. Starting 3 guys for the Commanders. I do think Carson Wentz can support 3 good fantasy receivers, at least for a game. So expect a little bit of a high-scoring affair here. I don't think either defense is super great. Colts and Jaguars. Colts, another big disappointment, but my boy Michael Pittman, who I told you guys to start, who I told you that Matt Ryan loves to throw to his wide receiver 1, doesn't matter who it is, you got to start him. Michael Pittman Jr. had a great game last week. He's going to have another great game against even worse defense here in the Jaguars. So give me Pittman Jr. He's going to have a huge game. Ashton Dulin off the radar right now. Paris Campbell. I want to see Matt Ryan throw to somebody else other than his wide receiver 1. And I do think also that game script is going to favor the Colts here running the ball with Jonathan Taylor. So I don't think that they throw it as much, but when they do, it's going to go to Pittman. On the Jag side, I think they're going to have to throw later on in the game. So Christian Kirk had a great game last week. And then Marvin Jones, a little bit of a downer last week for me. He didn't make the threshold I said, but I think he does it this week. Give me Marvin Jones Jr. and Christian Kirk starting for the Jags. Zay Jones just missing out. I think he could have a couple deep bolts, but I'm sticking with the more reliable Marvin Jones Jr. as well as Christian Kirk, who's proven to be, at least through one game, has proven to be a good signing there for the Jags, even if the money wasn't right. So I like Kirk. I like Jones starting for the Jaguars. Bucks Saints. So the Saints have had the Tampa Bay's number and specifically Tom Brady's number for the last few years here. So I was surprised with myself, but I'm going to start Russell Gage and I'm starting Julio Jones. I own both of those guys in multiple fantasy leagues. I had big time hopes for them and faith in them this year. So I'm definitely starting Gage. I'm definitely starting Jones this week, especially if Chris Godwin's out, which I think he's going to be. And even if he plays, he's going to be limited, and I expect another injury to pop up if they force him into game action. So Godwin's a sit no matter if he's playing or not. Mike Evans, I'm actually sitting. So in his last 6 games against New Orleans, Mike Evans' fantasy points, and this is, again, in the last 6 games, he scored 2 fantasy points, 8 fantasy points, 10 points, 7 points, 10 points again, and 0 points. So he's never even scored more than 10 points in the last 3 years against the New Orleans Saints defense. It's going to be focusing in on him as the wide receiver 1 for Tampa Bay. So I don't expect Mike Evans to have a big game here. I think it's going to be the Russell Gage in the slot game, as well as Julio Jones continue to surprise. He looks pretty resurgent, almost looks like he found a fountain of youth after a pretty bad season down in Tennessee. On the Saints side, I don't like Jarvis. I don't like Olave this week. I think they're going to try to run the ball against the Bucs. And even if that doesn't work, I think it's going to be a lot of checkdowns to the running backs, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, as well as a lot of quick throws to Michael Thomas, who looked really good in his return from injury in week 1. So give me Michael Thomas starting for the Saints, and that's about it. Panthers-Giants. Panthers' offense was essentially non-existent for 2.5 to 3 quarters, but they came alive in the fourth quarter, went over 200 yards, and scored 14 points. So I like the Panthers this week in a game against the Giants. A little bit of an interesting matchup here. Giants win by going for 2 at the end there, and then survive a late field goal attempt, and the Panthers go ahead at the last second and then lose in a late field goal attempt last week. So I like DJ Moore. I like Robbie Anderson. I think Baker Mayfield did not receive any favors from Matt Rule, who Panthers fans want him fired yesterday. So I think that he's been pretty poor with his decision-making, with his coaching, specifically in regards to Baker Mayfield, with not giving him first-team reps, even though reports out of camp were that he pretty much earned the starting quarterback spot from day one, and everyone knew he was going to start. He still forced him to split reps with the first-team offense with Sam Darnold until the end of the preseason. So pretty stupid mistake if you ask me, by Matt Rule. But I like DJ Moore. I like Robbie Anderson this week against a Giants defense that's not very good. They played better last week than many probably thought they would, but I like DJ Moore. I like Robbie Anderson. Baker Mayfield seems to want to target both of those guys. I'm sitting Shi Smith this week. He was the only other receiver who even saw game action last week for the Panthers. I do like Shi on the year, just not in this game against the Giants. On the Giants side, I'm going to sit every single receiver. The Panthers' only strength on defense right now, at least that is proven strength, is their secondary. Their secondary is really good. They held Cleveland to essentially no passing production last week, but they give up a lot of rushing yards. So I expect a heavy Saquon Barkley game, not a lot of throwing. I think game script's going to kind of lean towards a running game on both sides, but I like DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson when Panthers throw it. The Giants, I think that Daniel Jones is going to try to spread it out more than anything, but they're going to go to Saquon quite a bit. So I don't like any of the Giants receivers this week. Patriots-Steelers. Patriots offense as a whole, specifically the receiving core, I'm going to sit every single one. I said this last week, and I was right. I'm going to sit all the Patriots receivers until I can see some production from the offense. I have no idea what Bill Belichick's thinking. Why is Matt Patricia calling plays? It's not a good idea. It looked bad last week. It got 1 touchdown, yay. But with Mac Jones having a back injury too, I mean, it's no good news as far as throwing game goes for the Patriots. So I'm sitting all of them. Steelers side, Najee Harris says he's going to play, even though he was out, including overtime last week with a foot injury. He says he's going to play. I don't think even if he does play, I don't think he's going to be full strength. So give me Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, because the Steelers are going to have to throw it to produce. They don't have really good backup running backs. So I like Deontay Johnson, who's a target hog, and I like Chase Claypool, who's proven to be the wide receiver too right now in Pittsburgh. Give me both of those guys to break 12 points this week against the Patriots. I like the Steelers throwing. I think they're going to win the game, and I think they're going to do it by throwing the ball. Falcons-Rams. Falcons blew a game against a New Orleans Saints team that they honestly should have beat. They played better in them all game and still blew it. So I don't like anyone on the Falcons side in the receiving core. Sitting Drake London, sitting Olamide Zaccheaus, and Kadero Hodge, as well as Bryan Edwards, who hasn't even really played much. But I'm sitting all the Falcons this week. And on the Rams side, expect a huge bounce-back game. Give me Kupp. Give it, of course, Cooper Kupp. He should start every week. And then Allen Robinson, he's going to have a big bounce-back game. I think that Sean McVay is going to scheme some things up for Robinson to help get him involved. And I think it's going to be a good game for A-Rob as well. But sitting the other white receiver, they got Ben Skoranek. I'm gonna put him on the bench this week. Seahawks Niners. Seahawks surprised everybody by beating Denver, and I don't think that their defense will perform as good this week in San Francisco as they did at home in what seemed like the loudest stadium I've ever heard on TV. But I don't think they're going to be able to shut down the Niners offense as well. So I think they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than they'd like. I like DK Metcalf and I like Tyler Lockett this week. Give me both of them to start. Niners side, Deebo Samuel's the only guy that you can really start. And more than anything, I actually think it's because his rushing upside, it raises his floor so much, especially with Elijah Mitchell out for at least 8 weeks here. Deebo Samuel's going to have a lot of carries out of the backfield for a receiver, and they're going to try to, in my opinion, keep things simple for Trey Lance until he can figure out this offense. So give me Deebo as the only guy who did start for the Niners. They're going to try to run the ball and just kind of grind out the clock that way. Bengals Cowboys. I'll start with the Cowboys this week. So I actually don't have any faith in CeeDee Lamb. I'm super low on him. I've been low on him since he came into the league. I don't know what people see in CD. He's not an alpha. I think he's a good second receiver or he'd be an elite third receiver, but I think he's just a good second receiver. He's not the alpha wide receiver one that your team needs. Dak Prescott's out now. They got Cooper Rush, who I think will be a little bit better than people are expecting, but CD is going to benefit based purely off volume and game script here. They're going to be losing the Bengals early, so I think they're going to have to start throwing the ball pretty early in the game. And I think CeeDee Lamb's just going to see enough targets to break that 12-point threshold, but I don't have a lot of faith in him. I just think he's going to get the volume to break it. Bengals side, give me Jamar Chase. Give me Tyler Boyd, even if T. Higgins plays and gets out of that concussion protocol. I don't think he will, but even if he does, give me Tyler Boyd. I told you guys last week to sit T. Higgins. I know that, injury helped, but he didn't look – I think T. Higgins is good, but he didn't look great last week. He wasn't on his way to an outstanding fantasy game. I don't think a concussion helps. Give me Jamar Chase, who's obviously a proven wide receiver one, and Joe Burrow's number one target. And then give me Tyler Boyd, who I think will have a good game against a pretty bad Dallas Cowboys defense. Micah Parsons saved him a few times last week from disaster as far as big passing plays go. So I think Tyler Boyd, he's their kind of middle of the field, shorter route receiver. So I think he'll benefit a lot if the Dallas Cowboys pass rush can get there. Texans Broncos. Broncos, again, were a bit of a disappointment last week. Jerry Jeudy, if you take away his long touchdown catch on a pass that should have honestly been intercepted, then he wouldn't have broke the 12-point threshold. But I do like Jerry Jeudy, and I do like Courtland Sutton this week to start against the Texans. Texans defense isn't there, and it's the home opener for Russell Wilson and the Broncos. I think they come in motivated and pretty embarrassed from last week and that they're going to light up the Texans here. So give me Jeudy, give me Sutton. I'm sitting Hamler, though, on the Broncos side because the running backs are going to take up a lot of target share, especially Javonte Williams, if last week tells us anything. Texans side, Brandon Cooks, I'm going to start him every week until he proves why not. So give me Brandon Cooks. Davis Mills' number one target. He's going to throw him 10-plus passes. Brandon Cooks will get you that 12 points. I don't like Nico Collins. I don't like Chris Moore. I don't even like any of the running backs right now in the Texans. Just Brandon Cooks that they're going to be throwing the ball to against the Broncos. Cardinals, Raiders. Again, Cardinals coming off an embarrassing game last week against the Chiefs at home. I expect them to throw the ball a lot this game and try to run up the score if they can. I like Marquise Brown to have a good game, his first good game as a Cardinal. I like Rondale Moore if he plays to have a good game. I think Greg Dortch was kind of a glitch last week, and that's not going to happen. I think it's just a little bit of a mistake and kind of a fluky thing. So no faith in Greg Dortch. Definitely no faith in AJ Green, who just looks broken and old. Don't start either of those guys this week. You should put them on the bench. Raiders side, give me Adams, give me Hunter Renfrow. I think they're both starter worthy, especially I think this will be both teams scoring over 20 points this game. I like Adams for obvious reasons. He had a great first game. It looked like he's been playing with Derek Carr for the last 15 years. And then Hunter Renfrow, I think, will have a bounce back game from a pretty poor week one, honestly, by Renfrow standards. So give me both those guys, especially in a game I expect to be pretty high scoring. Bears Packers. So historically, Aaron Rodgers has owned the Bears. I was hesitant on a couple of these picks with the Packers because I still don't know what to expect. If Allen Lazard plays, I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to feed him the ball, so I expect him to be a lock 'em, start 'em this week against the Bears. Romeo Doubs, I was back and forth between him and Christian Watson. I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to have two wide receivers break that 12-point threshold because I think he's going to really come out and try to light up the Bears. He doesn't want to start off the season with back-to-back losses to division opponents. So I think that the Packers are going to come out firing, throwing the ball a lot. Expect, like I said, Lazard to break that threshold. Romeo Doubs, I think, will be the rookie who's more targeted out of the two rookies in Green Bay. So give me Doubs, give me Lazard. I'm sitting Watson, I'm sitting Sammy Watkins, and I'm sitting Randall Cobb. On the Bears side, Darnell Mooney had an extremely disappointing week win, but is in a monsoon. I expect things to turn around. The Packers defense did not look good, albeit against a pretty great offense that against Minnesota with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Bears offense isn't as good, but I like Darnell Mooney as a starter this week for the Chicago Bears. Getting to our two Monday night games. Yeah, that's right, two Monday night football games this week. Titans, I'm not starting any of those receivers. None of them are trustworthy right now. I don't like Kyle Phillips. Again, kind of an insane target share in that week one. I don't expect it to happen the rest of the year. This could honestly be his highest targeted game of the entire season. So I'm sitting Kyle Phillips, I'm sitting Treylon Burks, I'm sitting Robert Woods, and I'm sitting Nick Ikine because they're playing a good Bills team, especially a good Bills secondary and pass rush. So I don't expect them to throw the ball a lot. I think in order for Tennessee to win the game, they're going to have to grind the clock out, run the ball with Derrick Henry, and I think that's what they're going to try to do. So no receivers on the board for me this week for the Titans. On the Bills side, I like Stephon Diggs and I like Isaiah McKenzie, but I'm sitting Gabe Davis. I told you to sit Gabe Davis last week, and I was wrong, but I was wrong because of a schemed touchdown pass early in the game. So it wasn't anything that Gabe Davis did that got him wide open. It was the scheme. There was no one within 15, 20 yards of him. So I don't like Gabe Davis starting in a game that I think the Bills either blow out the Titans or the Titans grind out the clock and win. So I don't like Gabe Davis in this game. I'm putting him on the bench. The other Monday night game, Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams scored a lot last week, and I think it'll be another high-scoring game this week. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, both guys for the Vikings that you're going to want to start. KJ Osborne. And then on the Eagles side, A.J. Brown, obviously a must-start. He's a true alpha. He's a true wide receiver one. He's the opposite of CeeDee Lamb. Put him anywhere. It doesn't matter what quarterback he's playing with. He's going to show out, and he's going to produce. So give me A.J. Brown. And then Devontae Smith coming off a pretty mediocre, actually not even mediocre, pretty lousy week one. I think Devontae Smith bounces back this week. He has a good week against a pretty good Minnesota Vikings defense. But again, I'm expecting a high-scoring game. I think both teams are going to have to throw it quite a bit to win. So give me A.J. Brown. Give me Devontae Smith on the Eagles side. And that finishes it up for us here for week 2 for wide receiver rankings. Like I said, I'm Kiana Miller. I'm going to be the wide receiver expert all week. We're going to be answering some fan mailbag questions coming up. So hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, or in the YouTube comments. We're going to answer questions. I already got quite a few here in the mailbag. So let us know. We'll give you a shout out if we answer one of your questions on here. And you'll have a chance for some either free swag or potential cash here come season's end. So as always, let me know where I'm wrong. Let me know what you think we can improve on here. And when in doubt, hear me out.